Well, our first plenary session will elucidate on understanding risk and interconnections, SDG, disaster, climate change, and security. Without any further ado, I would like to introduce our illustrious panel, which will be chaired by none other than Lieutenant General Syed Ata Hasnain ji, PVSM, UYSM, AVSM, SM, VSM, and BAR. Lieutenant General Syed Ata Hasnain is one of India's most decorated military officers. He retired in 2013 as the military secretary after 40 years of service to the nation. Through most of his 4 decades of illustrious career, General Hasnain has served in turbulent environment and hotspots, from Sri Lanka to Siachen Glacier, from northeast to Jammu Kashmir, and in UN operations from Mozambique to Rwanda. He has seen it all in crucial appointments. He served 7 tours in J&K, decorated in most of them, and knows the J&K conflict comprehensively. He commanded the Indian Army's Srinagar-based 15 Corps and also commanded his battalion in Siachen Glacier. He's today one of the foremost writers and analysts on J&K, Pakistan, Middle East, and transitional extremist violence. He's a much sought-after speaker and writes for major Indian newspapers and is associated with Vivekananda International Foundation and Center for Joint Warfare Studies as Distinguished Fellow, and is on the Governing Council of the Indian Council of World Affairs, ICWA, and Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies, IPCS. He's been appointed Chancellor of the Central University of Kashmir by the President of India, and presently he is also serving as the National Disaster Management Authority as a member of Defense. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome him. He is here with us, chairing this session. I would also like to invite the co-chair of this session, Dr. Vinita Sahai, the Director of Indian Institute of Management, Bodh Gaya. She's the second woman in the country appointed by the Government of India to head IIM as the founder director. With around 26 years of experience, she has published and presented a large number of research papers in international and national journals, conferences, and book chapters. She's organized numerous international conferences and edited several books. Dr. Vinita Sahai, please. Joining us in our panel is Sri G.B. Singh, Chief Editor of Security Today, India's #1 security industry magazine. He's a security evangelist who has been advancing the professionalism of the private security industry for over 3 decades. He's a popular speaker at security industry events and takes keen interest in them, has authored some of the leading research-based articles that have been published in leading journals. In 2020, he was ranked number 4 amongst the top 20 influencers in the world. In the association figures, academics, and thought leaders. Sri G.B. Singh ji, welcome, sir. Sri Gaurav Sarup to kindly join us on stage, an accomplished professional with extensive years of solid project management and working knowledge of consulting, skilled at managing budgets, customer service, and operating finances, bilingual in English and Hindi. His specialties are carbon markets, sustainability reporting, corporate social responsibility, clean energy, international development, social entrepreneurship, and non-profit management. He's worked for Kane India and now is the director of ESG, carbon, and social performance at Vedanta Resources India. Joining us also in this panel is Sri Sanjay K. Srivastav, who will be joining us online from Bahrain. He's presently the Chief of Disaster Risk Reduction at UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. He leads its analytical work, capacity development, and intergovernmental work related to disaster risk reduction. Shri Sanjay is the recipient of ISRO's Team Excellence Award in 2008-2009 for his contribution towards harnessing space technology applications for the benefits of rural poor, and has more than 150 publications on disaster risk reduction, including research papers in peer-reviewed journals. And before I request the chair to kindly start this session, I would request him to share his experiences. He's hugely experienced, brings to these days his illustrious and career and huge experience. I request him to share his experience with us and then begin the session. Thank you.
Can you hear me at the back? Right at the back there? Thank you. I'll speak from here itself. We'll save the time of going up and down. But thank you very much, IISSM. Thank you very much for giving me the honor, inviting me here. We have a range of very important people here. I'm not naming everyone, but I definitely will acknowledge the presence of Mr. Gopal Pillai, who is an old mentor, a colleague and a batchmate of my elder brother in the IAS. So I always live under his shadow wherever he is, and I always acknowledge his presence there. Thank you, sir, for your presence here. I've been requested by Mr. Rajan Madekar to chair the panel and perhaps share a little bit of the experience that one has gathered, particularly in the last 3 weeks on the rescue efforts at the Silkyara tunnel. I will definitely do that, but I'm afraid I'm aware of the fact that we have a challenge of time. There is lunch waiting also, so we'll try and keep it as short as possible. But let me compliment the organization, IISSM, for organizing an event such as this, understanding the fact that in the year of G20, under the chairmanship of India, people maybe perhaps are not aware that out of the 12 protocols which were discussed as a routine, which were part of G20, we had a 13th protocol which was only at the initiative of India. And that 13th protocol was on disaster risk resilience. Introduced particularly because of the deep interest our Honorable Prime Minister has in this subject. People perhaps may not be also aware that it is under the Honorable Prime Minister's tutelage that the first Disaster Management Act, not of the nation, but of a state, was enacted in 2003. The first State Disaster Management Authority and the first State Disaster Response Force was set up in the state of Gujarat on the initiative of the Honorable Prime Minister. Why was this so? This should also be known among the public everywhere. It's primarily in 2001 that you had the famous Bhuj earthquake, which had over 10,000 fatalities. This was preceded in 1999 by the super cyclone in Odisha, which also had more than 10,000 fatalities. And the system of disaster management in India, Aapda Prabandhan as it's called in Hindi, was simply response-based, which meant you waited for a disaster to happen, to come, and then responded to it. Response was in the form of some relief material, some rations to the people who are affected, evacuation of a few casualties, burial of the dead, and the cremation. That was India's idea and system of disaster management. It got professionalized after the Bhuj tunnel tragedy. The Bhuj earthquake, sorry, the Bhuj earthquake tragedy. And of course, got cemented by the tsunami of 26 December 2004, ending in the enactment of the National Disaster Management Act of December 2005, under which the NDMA, of which I am a proud member today, was set up. The National Institute of Disaster Management of Dr. Santosh has been a former member of it, was also set up under this, and along with that, the National Disaster Response Force, which started with 8 units, went up to 12 units, and has got 16 units deployed all over India today. So that's the broad history of the commencement of professionalization of disaster management in India. One can carry on speaking on this, but if I may, I think the best way to summarize everything here, a lot of it was spoken in the initial, when the VIP panel was here, and the word knowledge was brought into it. Without knowledge, you don't go anywhere. This is a subject which is absolutely alien to most people. It's a new subject, but it's a hugely challenging subject. As you can see what's happening in Dubai in the last 1 month, COP28. Not many people understand what is happening there. Not many people like to turn the newspapers to see what are the proceedings of what has happened in COP28. So, knowledge is the biggest challenge, to get people to understand what this is, that without understanding climate change, without understanding disaster management, and without looking at disaster risk resilience,